It is not a secret that Territory Wars is my favorite game mode in this game. I've said it so many times. And why is Territory Wars my favorite game mode? I mean, number one, I just love the community component. Getting together with my brothers and going off to war, and the battlefield changes every time. It's not like raids where it's static. I just get so much of a thrill out of that. But I have to concede. Another big reason why Territory Wars is my favorite game mode is because we win a lot of Territory Wars. My guild, while I've been in my guild, I think we've only lost 1 or 2 wars. And so we are a very Territory Wars focused guild, and that makes it fun in my opinion. Now, in this video, I want to share a little bit of our knowledge on Territory Wars with you. Now, I'm not going to share some detailed trade secrets because, we do want to have our competitive edge. That said, there are some general tips, 5 general tips that I believe will help all of you up your Territory Wars game. And so, as I talk about these, I want to make a quick point that if your guild is only casually approaching Territory Wars, you may not want to do every single thing I'm saying here. It might feel overwhelming. It might feel hardcore. And so take what you want, leave the rest. But especially for those guilds out there who are really itching to up their competition on Territory Wars, I highly suggest all of these tips to get you to the next level and win more wars than you are losing. All right, let's get into it. Tip number 1 is to have maximum participation. Look, if you're going to win wars, you need to have 50 out of 50 participating. It really, really hurts your guild to even have a few people sitting on the bench. My best recommendation for this, especially at the top end, is to have every member ready with at least 4 defensive teams and 4 offensive teams, with, of course, 1 fleet in there, one that you set on offense, or one that you play on offense, one that you set on defense. And of course, to have those 4 teams on offense, 4 teams on defense, 8 teams total, you need to be working with your guild to ensure that they are farming for the right teams. If you're a guild officer, in my opinion, it is 100% your place to work with your guild on what teams they are farming. Some people get touchy about what they farm, don't mess with my farming schedule. Well, that said, that's great. You need to play the game and enjoy it how you are, but you are in a guild of 50 people and you are all collectively working towards goals. You can't reach some of those goals if people are out farming Gamorrean guard instead of farming a valuable defensive counter. And so definitely respect individual decisions as much as possible, but it's also 100% appropriate, in my opinion, to be pushing the farming of the appropriate teams for your guild to set on defense and to use on offense. Now, I'm not going to get into those specific teams. I'll let your guild figure that out, and also the order of where you set those teams. That's kind of a trade secret for what we're doing, but for you, do research on it, look at what your opponents are doing, what has worked against you, and then push the farming of the right teams to your guild so you can have max participation come attack phase day. Tip number 2 is to have adequate education and preparation. Now, education is key, my friends. So many guilds will just kind of willy-nilly attack phase day, and you'll have a lot of members who just don't know how to fight teams. A lot of us are so used to what we face in Squad Arena, right? That's great. But how do you face a bounty hunter team? How do you face a, first order team? How do you face the scoundrel team with Karth or Kira? How are you going to face those teams? And some people just simply don't know what counters to use. A lot of you guys who watch my videos probably do, but some of your guildmates may not. And so make an effort to educate your guild on what counters to use against specific teams. My best recommendation for this is twofold. Number 1, have channels on your guild Discord server for each defensive team that they might encounter, and have suggestions in those channels for what counters to use against them. Then your guild has a guide, ideally with videos, maybe YouTube videos of people who have just uploaded a single Territory Wars battle, etc. The second recommendation I have is to go in and put it in the orders. Put in the orders for each zone. This is the team that we want you to use against this team, and work with your guild on making sure that they are using the right teams. Too many banners are left untouched because people simply don't know what to use against certain defenses. Another big part about education is working with your guild on mods. Territory Wars could be called Mod Wars, my friend, because the guilds with the best mods tend to win. Now, you do have to have good attack strategy, but that said, if the mods aren't there, there's only so much you're going to be able to do. And so work with your guilds to mod the teams adequately. And from an individual perspective, look at your defensive teams. How do you have them modded? Do you think it's adequate? Reach out to your guild leader, reach out to your resident experts, ask them for assistance, and ensure that everyone is collectively working towards modding their teams properly. A lot of players will just have good mods on their arena team, and the rest are kind of just secondary. You really need, for Territory Wars, to take it to the next level, to have 8 full teams, 4 for defense, 4 for offense at a minimum, modded adequately. That doesn't mean they all have to have plus 20 speed mods. And speed is not everything in some teams. Like, for example, Resistance Trooper, you might use him on offense. He doesn't need to have that much speed because he's got the natural turn meter gain. He might just need the offense. So work with somebody specifically to talk through those mods. A huge part of education is going to be to talk to your guild about preloaded turn meter. This is one of the biggest rookie mistakes that guilds will make, and that specific members within guilds will make, and that is when you go into a battle. It doesn't go well. Everybody dies, and you leave all 5 characters on the board with nobody taken out. When that happens, that full team is going to have preloaded turn meter when you take the next team in, and so you're going to be awaiting an onslaught of attacks. Kind of like you're walking into the Chewy Legendary event where everybody's already loaded with attacks. That disadvantages every single person who's in there. So the easy way to mitigate this is to do your battles in airplane mode just in case. If you win the battle, take it off airplane mode, it will register. But if it doesn't, you can retreat, kill the app, whatever you need to do so that the turn meter does not register. It is better in almost every single case to go against full health, full protection characters than characters with some protection knocked off but loaded turn meter. Tip number 3 is going to apply specifically to guild leaders and officers, and that is to scout out your opponents. You can do this on swgoh.gg, look up their guild page, and look through what they've got. I also highly recommend bringing the DSR bot into your Discord servers. In that bot, you do have the capability of comparing guilds, and it will give you a spreadsheet breaking down what your mods look like, what their mods look like, how many Revens do they got, how many Trays do they got, how many do you have, so you can make a comparison and see the 2 guilds side by side, and then you can, with that information, make a strategy custom to the guild that you are facing. The same strategy likely won't work against every single guild. You are going to need to tailor each strategy specifically for the guild that you are facing whenever possible. Tip number 4 is to have patience, and if you're a guild officer or leader, preach patience. When you first approach the attack phase, making sure that your guild is being smart with their attacks is key. You've got a full 24 hours. Now, a good example of this, I want to call out a guild that my guild faced once that actually beat us, and this is a guild called PvP Elite. Now, I do not know everything that they do, but I did observe something they did. When we first went into war with them, I noticed that they did nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Nobody went into battle. It was maybe 30 minutes plus where nobody did anything. And then all of a sudden it was just and everybody just got obliterated. Why is that? Because the guild was taking time to research the mods, they're taking time to research the teams that we had, and to develop an offensive strategy based on what they were seeing, and their guild members waited for the instruction. I don't know that that's what happened, but I'm guessing that's what happened, and that is something that my guild is definitely big on as well. Waiting for the attacks. And if you're unsure, if you as an individual member are unsure if you can beat a team, ask first. You've got time. There's no rush to run in there and try to seize some banners and risk losing banners in the process. So be patient, do your research on the mods, compare the turn orders, who's going to go first, make sure you're using the right counter, and then execute the battle. And don't preload turn meter. Last, but certainly not least, we've got tip number 5, and that is to learn from every single war. Win or lose, you have always got stuff to learn. Now, one way that you can learn is by setting rogue actions to work for you. And what I mean by this is you can set every single territory from an officer standpoint point as restricted. Every single guild member will need to go in and indicate that they are disobeying the order and then go attack. Now that seems a little counterintuitive at a glance, but what this does is it gives you this rogue action screen and it gives you a number for how many times individuals went into attacks. Every rogue action is an attack. So what this is beneficial for is you can go in and compare the amount of times somebody attacked to how many battles or how many banners they have. And if there's a big gap between the two, it shows you X members are being inefficient. These are education opportunities to talk to those members about what is not working. Now, that's tracking down who's being inefficient because sometimes people aren't willing to fess up to it. But I also encourage getting your guild members comfortable with owning their mistakes. To raise your hand, talk about it, ask what you could change. These are education opportunities when you lose those banners to not do it next time, to learn what happened wrong. Was I using the wrong team? Were the mods off? Was my attack strategy off? And then they won't make that same mistake next time, hopefully with the adjusted approach. And then from a guild standpoint, I definitely recommend preaching that your guild learn from your mistakes and not make excuses for losses. One of the most common excuses I hear all the time for losses is, oh, the matchmaking sucks. Now, you know what? Sometimes guilds might get mismatched. That does not mean that the war is always going to be unwinnable for you. In fact, we had a guild we faced recently that sandbagged their roster to get to us. They had dropped players to get into a lower galactic power bracket so that they could face us. And you know what? We smoked them because we had a really good plan in place. Now, again, that's not to say that there's never matchmaking issues, but don't use matchmaking as an excuse to not adequately prepare for territory wars. If you take these tips, if you educate your guild, make sure that they're participating, scout your opponents out and make custom plans for that, have patience and learn from your mistakes, I am so confident that you will increase the amount of wins you're doing, especially if you can get your full guild on board with it. All right, my friends, what are some of your takes on territory wars, and was this video helpful for you? Let me know down in the comments below. Again, I strongly feel like this is one of the best game modes for me. It's my favorite, and I know it gets so much more fun when you have an effective strategy in place. This does not need to be too sweaty. Getting your guild into the right place can take a lot of effort, but once you get everyone on the same page, a lot of this stuff kind of manages itself. Let me know again what you thought down in the comments below, my friends. If you did like the video, give it a thumbs up, and as always, my brothers, don't forget
my dead body. Sorry about the mess.